All right. Everybody enjoy the day off Monday? Get caught up? Nice rainy day.
Yeah.
I kept falling asleep. All right. So obviously Evan is shaved. Looks very different.
Yep.
Evan's traveling today in Jersey. He's online, but this is Chad Spoden, one of our senior analysts. So he's helping out. So thank you, Chad. If you've seen him online answering questions, now you can know what he looks like.
Yep.
All right. We maybe have a lot to go through. There it goes. All right. What is going on? All right, there we go. Yeah, Evan's in Jersey, so and don't show him pity. Mostly through chapter 4. Everybody read 1, 2, and 3 so far. Anyone gone ahead and read chapter 4 yet? Not really. Some of it. Okay. Wow, crickets.
No slides.
Are
you sharing your?
Oh. No, they want to see too.
Hang on.
You didn't miss anything.
There we go.
Yeah, sun is life. It's not testable. It's been nice here though, except for Monday. It's nice this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
All right, 160 slides tonight, so we are going to be flying through this stuff. So yeah, strap in. That's why Evan gave it to me. And he's not here. I'm just going to rip through it without being off on tangents. We'll see. All right, Slack channel, did everybody get, they should have gotten an email Monday from Brandon to join the Slack channel. Please do join that if you want, if you have any questions. If you didn't get the invite, email us and we'll get that out to you. Study groups, again, same thing. Slack channel is out there. If you need anything else, just email and we'll help do what we can to help facilitate that. All right, quiz. What model should you use if you are primarily concerned with confidentiality of information? B, BIBA and I for integrity. And that's those two. That's how I remember it. That's what somebody said. I don't know.
I guessed on it.
Guess that works too.
But I got it right.
All right, x86 systems. The kernel runs in which CPU ring? 0. Closest in, right? Most privileged. And you'll notice we're switching up the questions from other sources. We did reach out to and get the trial again for CCure, and so we'll be getting that out with a code for percentage off. I think he said 10% off with the code. But we're going to use some questions out of there so they're not out of the book, so you get a little bit more out of this. So probably next time. What type of cloud service level would Linux hosting be offered under? Infrastructure. All right. Nonrepudiation is best described as, we haven't covered this yet, but we're gonna see where people are at. Proving a user performed it. So non-repudiation means you can't argue. You can't repudiate that I did that, right? So logging and things like that. So we'll go through that. We're gonna get to that. Don't worry. It was a trick question. All right. So we're gonna finish up chapter 4, domain 3. Here is where we're at. This is a big domain. So we're going to go through the cryptography, the attacks, implementing it, perimeter defenses. And it was previously 3 separate domains. They combined into a single domain. So a lot of information here. Starting on page 160 in the book. All right. Good. When we're going through these, the thing to remember, what you'll see, top level, symmetric encryption. What's highlighted, that's really the key. So what you see on here is really going to be the important part on making sure these are what you understand. Be able to tell the difference between the different types of encryption. Symmetric, one key to encrypt or decrypt. It's symmetrical, whichever way you're going, it's the same key. Secret key, so it's that one, whatever your key is, that's it. So we want to call it the secret. So why? It's fast. Because we just have one key. We're not worried about encrypting it with one, decrypting it with another. It's just straight through and then straight the other way. The biggest downside on that is the key must be securely shared before you may communicate. That one key is compromised, the whole encryption scheme is compromised. Okay. So out of band method. So you would see. I'm trying to think of an example on that, but right, if you send it via the secure file share, and then you send it the encrypted key via maybe chat or a text message, something like that, some other way of communicating. You wouldn't send, here's the link for the download the encrypted key, file and the key for it. You're just giving away the whole thing. So yeah, I think the biggest thing, symmetric, same both ways, fast, and then it's got good cryptographic strength, and we'll go through some more of that stuff as we go that explains how that plays in. Stream and block cipher. So a stream is each bit is independently encrypted as it goes. As it streams through, it's encrypted. Block, you're taking blocks of data. So for in this example, 56 bits for DES, 128, 192, 256, whatever it is for AES. So streaming works, we're encrypting it bit by bit. Block, we're taking a block of data and encrypting it. Kind of, I don't know, self-explanatory on those two. If you understand, think stream, it's running, right? As it goes, we're encrypting it. Some block ciphers can emulate a stream by setting the block size to 1, still technically a block cipher, where you just set the block really small. We'll go through all these more and have some examples around it, so it will make more sense. Initialization vector, used in some symmetric ciphers, ensuring the first encrypted block data is random. So what you'll have is a random set of characters as your initialization vector, so that when you stream it through, it's not the same result every time, right? So if you had a phrase and you ran it through, if you took the same plain text without the initialization vector, ran it through, you have the exact same output both times. So what that initialization vector does is adds some initial line, right? It could be letterhead, a from line, whatever it may be. Maybe it's a date time, but it's changing the initial piece. So that changes everything else beyond it, right? So if you have a 128-bit block, if it's the same message, it's always going to be the same output. If we change even the first 5 or 10 or whatever, it changes where everything is. So it changes the output. So that's what your initialization vector is. Ensures those plain texts encrypt differently. Chaining seeds the previous encrypted block into the next block to be encrypted. So it literally just takes, here's the output, we're going to put it to start the next one. We're going to take that to start the next one. It chains those blocks together. The downside to this would be if you have any sort of error in it, or any sort of weakness in there, it's going to spread it throughout because you're now propagating that throughout the entire encryption key, or encrypted. Right. Couple things. So DES, data encryption standard. This is what you'll need to know about DES. 1976, symmetric, designed by IBM based on Lucifer. So you will need to know these types of keys on this. And using a 64-bit block size, so 64 bits each round, and a 56-bit key. I'll show you here. This next one, I'll go back, hold on. So when we're going through these, you don't need to know necessarily the details beyond, right, exactly how they work. What you're gonna wanna know is how, if they give you an example that says, what's the encryption standard uses a 64-bit block with a 56-bit key. Oh, DES. That's the type of level I think you'll need to go to. It's really important to know all this information. These are the types of, this is the level you'll need to go to and memorize, right? So DES, 5 modes, block versus the emulated stream. So you have, where's my pointer? Look at that. Electronic code book, cipher block chaining, cipher feedback, output feedback, counter mode. Let's see. Yeah, all right, we're gonna go through all those. I didn't want to jump too far ahead. I had 3 IRs today, so I didn't preview these. Shh. Sorry, Evan. So what you'll need to get, again, what encryption key is gonna use these 5 modes? They'll give you the clues, and you just need to be able to pick out what this was. Electronic code book was the original mode. They were later added. Newest mode for CTR. All right, so electronic code book, what is this? Well, as it says there, this is the simplest and weakest form, no initialization vector, no chaining. So when you put it in, right, I can't read this, so I have to move around. You got your plain text, and your key comes in, and you get your ciphertext out. That's all it is. Every time you put in that same plain text against that, whatever your key is, you'll always have the exact same output on that. So that was the initial method around that. All right. Any questions? No? All right. Cipher block chaining. So block mode, it XORs your previous encrypted block of ciphertext to the next block of plain text to be encrypted. All right. So okay, it's got an example. I'm going to go forward and then back here. So you can see what you've got. You've got your ciphertext, your key. It comes out. What's your into your wait. Oops, okay.
The arrows go in the opposite.
Wait a minute. That's going. Yeah.
Going right to
There's
left.
a mix there. Okay, that threw me. It's like, wait a minute. That's not right. Okay, so you get your plain text, comes in, you run it through your key. That is now your initialization vector for the next set of plain text, right? So now you are building into that, so you can't get the exact same
It's just a rolling
result. Yeah, it's just a rolling. You're using your ciphertext as the next piece. So that's where you get your XOR. The first encrypted block then becomes the initialization vector that contains your random data. The chaining destroys the patterns. The problem is, if you do have an error, it does propagate throughout, right? Because you're now using. I think the arrows are wrong. Is why I got thrown on that one. Yeah, so you have your plain text encrypts. Ciphertext now becomes the initialization vector for the next piece. So if you have an error in the encryption, that's when you would then propagate that throughout the entire encrypted file. Cipher feedback, similar, stream mode versus block mode. So you'll need to know cipher block chaining, cipher feedback, very similar, block versus stream. Same thing, it's using the plain text, the ciphertext to act as the initialization vector for the next piece. All right, so output feedback, previous ciphertext is a subkey XORed into the plain text. So it's going to use the subkey before it is XORed. So the big difference here, this is hard. I feel bad for the people online that can't see me moving over and pointing to the screen. And it's too small in there. All right. Yeah, so you have your initialization vector that goes in first, and then the plain text that goes through. So you're encrypting it that way. So high level, you just need to understand you'll see an example, Cipher, output feedback. So it uses the sub key before it's XORed. Cipher feedback is previous ciphertext for the feedback. So it's this very, very small difference between the two. Unfortunately, unless you're in encryption, this is one, I'll be honest, this is the one I felt like I struggled with the most. I did a lot with encryption around, certificates and things like that, but unless you're in development and actually doing it, so a lot of this is going to be memorization of kind of concepts that aren't familiar for a lot of people. The nice thing is you just need to know it at a high level.
I don't think there was, when I took the test, I don't know if there was really maybe one or two that
Yeah.
got to that level. But
Yeah, a lot of them are going to be, very high level. This one has 5 levels or 5 modes of doing it, or 64-bit key with, 64-bit block with this 56-bit key, right? That's all the deeper you have to go. Counter mode, we use as a counter. So same advantages of B. So patterns are destroyed, errors do not propagate, and then the feedback could be as simple as a ascending number. So you then just add the counter, right? 0, 1, 2. It just counts up. That's your what changes and what makes that change each time. Evan's probably grimacing, going, "Oh, he loves encryption."
I do that you're doing well.
DES. This is really the key piece to remember, right? So that first slide where we said kind of the high level of what DES is and know the difference, right? You can memorize this and tell the difference on these, you're probably going to be okay. I would be surprised if the test went any deeper than that level. So, right, with electronic codebook, which ones are blocked versions, which one are streaming? Did they have the initialization vector, and does it have error propagation? You can tell those different pieces of, the different modes apart with with this table, you'll be in good shape. All right, everyone still with me? Again, HighLevel Single DES, 64-bit block, 56-bit key, 16 rounds of encryption. That's a key one right there. 64, 56, 16. Originally in 1976, remember we talked about work factor, how much work is going to go into breaking the encryption. 1976, not a problem. Computing power was very expensive. Massively parallel computers, so Copacabana, which is hilarious, but non-testable example, 100 CPUs in parallel could break the 56-bit DES in a week or so at a cost of under 10 grand. So 1976, yes, now not so much. DES cracker. So I don't remember how long does it take now? Is that right? The 56-bit? He knows more on that. I don't know. All right. He's answering questions, I'm sure. Anyway, you don't need to know that for the test. Triple DES, so you're applying a single DES 3 times per block. So that's pretty important. Double DES using the same key twice at the bottom. You don't want to do that. There's a meet in the middle, right? So we can be able to tell the difference when you're doing a double DES. So it's not even something you would look at. If you see double DES on the test, it's the wrong answer. You can eliminate it. Triple DES standard in '99 using FIPS 46-3. The problem, slow and complex, so AES-2 fish are much faster, but triple DES was the recommended standard in '99. So that's an important one to know. Here's FIPS 46-3. That just explains kind of what it is. I think you'll need to know just that that's what set the standard as for triple DES. All right, so what is triple DES? Again, 3 times per block. So you're doing an encrypt. So you're encrypting your plain text, you're then decrypting it, and then encrypting that again. Using the 3 keying, 1, 2, or 3 unique keys. So there's what those are called if you're using 1, 2, or 3 unique keys. The problem is if you use triple DES with the same key, it's the same as using single DES, right? You're not gaining any strength to this, right? If I encrypt, decrypt, and encrypt again with the exact same key each time, it's not changing it. So ciphertext back to the original plain text to the ciphertext again. Wouldn't want to use that. So then you'll see here the 2 key. So you're using key 1 to encrypt it. So you get a ciphertext. You then use key 2 to decrypt that. So you get a completely different plain text than the original. And then key 1 to encrypt it again. So 112 bits of key length, legacy hardware applications, limited memory. That's, I don't know if I've seen that in use anywhere, excuse me, other than legacy where you might need it from a hardware limitation. The triple DES with 3 keys is typically what you would see. That's a 168-bit key length. So you're encrypting, decrypting, and encrypting with 3 separate keys. So there's no duplication of the keys in that process. And then, yeah, 2 and 3 keys sort of until 2030. As of now, triple DES, if done correctly with 168, hasn't been broken, but now you're moving to other faster, stronger algorithms. All right. So, okay, good example here, single DES encryption. So we're going to encrypt with the key of Hannibal. So we're saying attack at dawn. There's our output, right? So that's what our ciphertext would look like. So here is the 1 key that we're talking about. So we're going to encrypt it with that key, input attack at dawn, get the output, decrypt it back when we get the same plain text, and then the same ciphertext again. So it doesn't give you anything extra. You've just added complexity with no additional security. If you had different keys here, right, your output would be completely different if you had a different key. So that's really the difference on that. All right, questions? All right.
Fun stuff.
International data encryption algorithm. So international replacement to DES, patented in many countries, 128-bit key, 64-bit block size, held up to cryptanalysis, patent issues, and slow speed. So I don't remember seeing a whole lot of anything around this other than there's an international algorithm. That's what they would be IDEA. But 128-bit, 64-bit block size. That might be one test question they might try to get you on, because there's going to be others, 128, 64-bit. International would be the key. Oh, okay, it's IDEA. So AES, this is the current standard for symmetric block cipher. FIPS 197, 128-bit with 10 rounds, and you will need to know this. 192-bit with 12 rounds, or 256-bit with 14 rounds of encryption. Keys are 120-bit blocks. So you will need to know how many rounds of encryption to get to the different strengths. That's one of the things that I remember. I don't know if you'll get tested on it, but it's a good thing to know for this. It's open algorithm, free to use, free of all IP restrictions, designed to replace DES. So one of the nice things, right, that we want an open source encryption. We don't want proprietary. If it's proprietary, we don't know exactly what they're doing. If it's open source, to get a better, more secure solution. Choosing AES, these are one, I absolutely had a question on this one, which algorithm is AES? So 97 NIST said, hey, we need a replacement what's out there. So you had 15 candidates announced in 98, 99 was reduced to 5. These are the 5. So you had the Mars by IBM, RC6, which is RSA, same company that does the security tokens. Rindall by, now it's my turn to get those names wrong. Those guys, Damien and Reisman, that's not good. Serpent and Two Fish. So you will need to know what were the 5, which one was picked. AES is based on Rindall. All right. And yeah, as you said, those are pioneering names. So four functions in AES, and we will go through this. Subbytes, shift rows, mixed columns, and add round key. Yeah, they're pretty self-explanatory when we go through them, so I'm not going to try and explain it without the graphics because it'll just be less confusing for everyone. But data is called a state, 4 rows of 4 16-byte blocks. So here's what this looks like, subbytes. We are saying bytes are substituted according to the substitution table. So if we've got a block of 4 by 4, our substitution is we're going to take A22 and actually whatever is in B22 is what the output is. Right? So we're substituting the different blocks. Make sense? All right. Shift rows, diffusion, same concept. We're now going to shift our rows over. So there's no change in the top one. Shifts 1, A00 becomes A10, A20, A30. So we're shifting our rows over 1. And remember, it's always a 4 by 4 block for this. And I think what you need to know just at a high level is what it does. You don't need to really get into what the actual implementation of it is. Just understand at a high level. There's 4 functions on AES. Right? It's the subbytes. What does that mean? Right? Because they may try to test you on which of these functions, describes it in in the paragraph or a sentence, and then which function is it. So you'll need to be able to tell those apart. I think that's about the level you would need. Mixed columns. So very similar to the subbytes, we're just changing the columns. Okay. So finite field mathematics, it all gets really complex. There's all kinds of really cool stuff around it. If you're into it, I think you go into a little bit more depth in the book. You can, is it Schneider's book, Encryption?
Applied Cryptography.
Yes, thank you. Applied Cryptography. I completely, it's been
Everyone should
awesome
have
book.
it.
It is. If you want to learn about it, that is a phenomenal book. It's not for everyone. And then add round key. So what is the final function applied in each round? So you're taking, where's my mouse or pointer? We're doing, let's see. Oh my gosh, Evan, help. I totally just went blank on how to explain this in a way that makes sense.
Sure, you'd have to ask that when I'm not sitting in front of my computer right now.
Oh, no, it's the add round key where the final function applied in each round XORs the state with the subkey.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's just an XOR. So,
Okay.
XOR, yeah, it takes a part of the key, XORs it with the round. That's it.
Okay, so A is XORed with K, which then gives you B. Okay. I need to get more sleep.
Don't read too much into that one. That one's just XOR is the key file.
Okay, yeah, I see that now. So A XORs with K in this table, and the output is what you're going with. Told you, encryption is not my strongest area, so this is a challenge for me. It's good. This is how I keep up to remembering this stuff because you don't use this every day. Blowfish, Two Fish. So no, these are symmetric block ciphers. Those are the two. Bruce Schneider. Know the difference. Blowfish is 32 to 448 bit with a default of 128 and a 64-bit key. I'm sorry, it's 32 to 448-bit keys to encrypt 64 bits of data. Got that one backwards. 64 bits of data, 32 to 448 key. Twofish was one of the AES finalists, right? So 128 8-bit blocks using 128 to 256-bit keys. Really, that's all you need to know is to be able to tell, right? This is the type of question is going to be, it'll give you it's encrypting this many bit blocks using this size key. There are some duplications around those sizes, so they'll give you another clue. Maybe it was an AES finalist, and the two options are, very similar. Well, that's going to be your giveaway. So as long as you memorize what's on here and understand it, you'll be okay. Both open, unpatented, freely available, both work. Yeah, Schneider on security, there it is. The Blowfish encryption algorithm. And you want it open source, right? If there's a weakness in it, you want that open to be able to see what's going on. If it's closed source proprietary, you have no idea what's happening within that encryption. Is there a problem?
That goes back to Kirchhoff's theory, right? Where we started the encryption, the application of that.
All right. RC5, RC6, these are from RSA. And you'll need to know the difference in this. What is on here is what you really is the important part. Okay. RC5 is 32 for testing, 64 for the replacement of DES, or 128-bit. I've seen the test questions that say things like, this one has 3 different block sizes. One is for testing, something like that. Then that should trigger it. If you can remember this level, you'll be okay. And then variable key range 0 to 2040 bit. So it could be, has 3 block sizes with a variable key size from 0 to 2040, RC5. RC6, that's your AES finalist. It was just basically they took RC5 and said, oh, well, they're saying to be in the AES, you have to do these things, okay? Now we're doing 128-bit blocks using 128, 192, or 256-bit keys. So you have a larger blocks and then set keys. It wasn't that variable. All right. All right, so symmetric now. Evan's killing me with asymmetric. I would say he did that late. He's testing me. See if I check the slides. All right. Asymmetric. How do we, that's right, what's symmetric issue? Shared keys, right? How do we get those across? So now we get rid of that pre-shared key issue. So DiffieHellman, the Diffie-Hellman key exchange. It's going to be, we'll go through all that. RSA is asymmetric. RSA is Rivest, Schmier, Edelman. Those are the authors' names. You'll learn about them. So big things to remember, asymmetric. It's 2 keys. You use 1 key. This is to encrypt, 1 key to decrypt. Think public private, right? So I keep my private key and share a public key. So if I encrypt something and give out my public key, if it decrypts, it was actually from me. Or if you only want something that only I can see, you would encrypt it with my public key, send it to me, and only I can decrypt it. I'm the only one who has the private key. One-way functions, easy to compute, and difficult to reverse. So a lot of them are going to use, multiplication of primes. And I think we go through that in the next couple slides. If not, I'll make sure we talk about it. Oh yeah, see, look at that, man. All right, so factoring the primes. So if you look, really when you think about this, multiply the 2 primes, 6269 by 7883. That's really easy to figure out. right? Just multiply them together with a calculator, boom, done. But if I gave you the number 49,418,527 and said, okay, what two primes multiplied together equal this number? That's going to take a long time to try and figure that out, right? It's really fast to do it, really hard to reverse the other way. Yeah, factoring, no shortcut has been found. That's the basis of RSA. Yeah, public key. So the factoring, that final number, the final result, that's your public key. And then the two that created it, that's basically your private key. Simple, right? You won't be asked to like reverse it or anything. All right, so discrete logarithm. So same concept, right? We're gonna say 7 to the 13th power. That's really easy to do, right? 98 million, blah, blah, blah. But if I flip that around and said 98 million, whatever, is what to what power, or 7 to what power, that's gonna be a lot more difficult to figure out, right? So you're taking a very easy mathematical equation, and then your public key is the output of it, the result. And then you're saying, all right, well, if you can figure that out, great. Not easy to do. So that's the basis of DiffieHellman and El-Gamal, which we will talk about right now. So DiffieHellman, what you'll want to know, this is what allows two parties to securely agree on a symmetric key via a public channel, DiffieHellman key exchange. So yeah, that explains it. You don't need to know the math behind this. Really what you need to know is this is what DiffieHellman key exchange.
Come on.
Right. I'll let you do that. I mean, if you really want it, GX to the mod and to the Y power. I'm just gonna read it off at that point because that's not my strength. What you need to know about DiffieHellman, two parties can securely agree on a symmetric key via public channel. DiffieHellman key exchange. That's all you need to, that's really the basis of what you need to know. Elliptical curve cryptography. So one-way function, discrete logarithms is applied to elliptical curves. So because we are applying those discrete logarithms, right? X to the Y power, we're now applying that to an elliptical curve. It makes it much stronger, right, per bit. And it's also stronger than factoring the primes, less computational resources. And we'll talk about some of this here in a second, but elliptical curve, stronger per bit, less computational resources with shorter keys because it is stronger than stronger per bit than other asymmetric methods. So low power devices where they don't have a lot of computing power built in. All right, so some trade-offs, asymmetric, symmetric. So when you're looking at asymmetric, it's gonna be slower. Right? It's just, that's all you need to know. Asymmetric is the slower of the two. Asymmetric is weaker per bit. So there are some downsides. We need a longer bit or longer key size to get the same strength. They use them together. So what you're looking at is going to be with this table here. If you have symmetric key length of 12, we're using 3 key triple DES with the symmetric key of 112, so a discrete logarithm equivalent would need a 2048-bit key. Factoring prime would need 2048. Elliptical curve, much better, 224 to 255, right? So you're seeing symmetric, here's your key length, right? Pretty short, what's the algorithm? And then to do that in either the discrete logarithm or the factoring primes, you need a much longer key length. Elliptical curve, much shorter than the other two for asymmetric, but still much longer than what you would need for symmetric. So Yeah, asymmetric and symmetric used together. Use an asymmetric algorithm RSA to send the use an asymmetric algorithm to send a symmetric key. All right, so we're going to encrypt it. How are we going to transfer that key across? We're going to send it a public private. So we'll send an encrypted file with that. So use them together. Does that make sense? I saw a little bit of confusion on there. Anybody online?
Very few questions, but
I put everyone to sleep.
No.
So think about it this way. So when you're using them together, right, you want to use the faster, stronger algorithm to encrypt. Right, so we're going to use a symmetric AES. So much smaller key length. It's going to be faster, stronger per bit. Well, we can't. How do we get that key across? Well, maybe I sign the symmetric key so if it's Chad and I, right? I'm going to sign the symmetric key. I'm going to encrypt it with Chad's public key and send it to him. So now I've got an encrypted key that is going across that only he can decrypt. So then when I send him that symmetrically encrypted file, the only person who can get it is him, because he's the only one who can decrypt the key. Does that make more sense? Okay.
It says it changes the session key periodically. Is that 24 hours, hourly?
Say it again.
It says you can change the session key or retransmit it periodically to change it so that.
So it's always a rotating.
Yeah.
Is that a settable time period?
I think so.
I think when you configure the encryption, whatever the program you're using that utilizes it, you should be able to configure that. I don't know enough about the different programs utilizing it to.
Where I've seen some of this is like in VPN tunnels and things like that, where you want it to, you're communicating and setting up a secure traffic across a public network like the internet. So you obviously want to rekey that.
Yeah.
And typically that's going to be a functionality of the two firewalls that are talking or whatever.
Yeah,
Hey,
it's whatever
we're just going to go ahead and rekey it.
Software that's implementing
Right.
these algorithms.
Yeah.
All right. Hashing, encryption using algorithm and no key. So one-way hash is no way to reverse it. We'll talk through this. So hashing is integrity, right? So you can see, have you ever downloaded it and it says, here's the hash? Well, that's how you run it through this algorithm, and if the output is the same, when you've downloaded the file, you know you've got good integrity. And we're not encrypting it with it, but we're validating nothing has changed. When I put this executable up here and hashed it, I ran it through my algorithm, this was the output. Download it, run it through the same algorithm, do you get the same output? Yes, we've got integrity. No, something's changed. Variable length plain text hash into a fixed length hash value. So message digest for that, just know you're going to set a set length for the hash. So even if the plain text is just simple 10 characters and our hash length is 50, it's the output that is always going to be 50 characters. Doesn't matter what the input is. We're always going to end up with the same output on the hash. That's your message digest on that. Again, yeah, integrity, SHA-1. Please don't use that. 160-bit hash, MD5, 128-bit. Yeah, SHA-2, SHA-3, I think is out or coming out. No, I'm just trying to think. I've seen.
Yeah, I don't
anyway.
know that. I'll try that off the top of my head.
So that's what you need to know about hash. So what do we tell about that? Not unique, right? Number of possible plaintext is larger than the number of hashes. So I should say the other thing would be if we go larger, we're still going to come out and only say, if we have a 50 character hash, we input 100 characters, you're still only going to have a 50 character hash. There's a finite number on that. Don't use that, and I'm just using that as an easy example to explain it. Don't remember 50. So you can have one document could have more than the same hash. This is called a collision. So when we come through and hash it out, you could have two different inputs that result in the same output, the same hash. When we go through the hash, the output will be the same. So then again, that's assuming the plaintext is longer than the hash. It should be hard, but it could happen. Right, so if the plaintext is shorter than the hash, it's more likely. If it's longer, it should be hard to find, but it is possible. Yeah, MD5, revest 128-bit hash value based on any input length. So it doesn't matter how many bits you put in, your hash will always be 128 bits. Right, so that's where it is. Weaknesses could be discovered, could discover collisions. So what are we going to find with collisions? Well, we can reverse it and tell what the initial one is, right? So if we see on this slide, Michael, Jim, Dwight, Pam, Toby, if you start getting collisions, that's where you can start telling what those plaintext might be. Because we're getting the same thing, so you can start to reverse that. MD6 is the newest version, so don't use MD5, MD6 out there. But what you'll need to know, MD5 128-bit based on any input length. It's really the important part. SHA, so that's just the name, secure hash algorithm. SHA-1 was the first version, 1993, 160-bit hash value. That's what you need to know about SHA-1, 160-bit hash value. SHA-2 is recommended over SHA-1 or MD5. Oh yeah, see there you go. SHA-3 announced in 2007 and then announced as a standard in fall of 2015. So there you go. Easy. All right. Haval, there's again a lot of hash values. You just need to know high level how to tell these apart, right? So what you're going to pick the message digest length. So again, the software you're using that may utilize Haval, it should have drop down to say what digest size do you want, what message digest size. You can have multiple sizes and then using multiple rounds. Some of the design behind MD5 faster than, I'm sorry, of the MD family faster than MD5. So Haval, variable length. Here's what it has: multiple message digest sizes, and it has 3, 4, or 5 rounds. That's all you need. You don't need to reverse engineer it. All right, so this is an example of what that would look like. You have a file, computer hash.zip, and you want to run it through the different hashes. This is what those look like. Just an example. See, the longer ones obviously give you less likely to have collisions, right? This one is fairly short. You could have a very limited number of combinations. All right, everyone good on that so far? All right, I'm just gonna keep going. So cryptographic attacks. Remember we talked about that at the very beginning of one of the classes last week. Cryptographic attacks are used by cryptanalysts to recover plain text without the key or to recover the key itself. So there's multiple types of cryptographic attacks. Brute force, we're going to generate every possible key and compare it, and eventually we will get the plain text. Yeah, effective against all key-based ciphers except for the one-time pad if implemented correctly. So brute force, we're just going to try every possible combination. Eventually we'll get there. How long? Well, it depends on which algorithm and why some are more secure than others. Known plain text. So we have part of a plain text. We have the plain text and then matching the ciphertext. So we want to know, we've got our known, we know what we started with, we know what we ended with. Okay, what did they use to get from A to B? So we know both sides, we just don't know how it was done. So we're trying to work our way through that. Chosen plaintext, adaptive plaintext. So goal here, trying to derive the key, both of those trying to derive what the key was. You choose what the plaintext to be encrypted. So you would say, you would encrypt a phrase and then maybe change one character, re-encrypt what changed. Can we get a collision? Can we see what changes? So you just systematically step through making changes of the plaintext based on what the encryption was, the output was. So you will need to know, again, the difference of what these different attacks are. But what is on here will be enough from a knowledge level. Chosen ciphertext and adaptive chosen ciphertext. So it's mirroring the plaintext. We're going to say, I've got this ciphertext, I'm now going to decrypt it and try and figure out which key is correct. Right, so you have an encryption file, we're just running it through keys going the other way, versus we have the plaintext and now we're trying to figure out based on what the output is, what the key is. And then meet in the middle, encrypt on one side, decrypt on the other side, and figure out how this works. So we're going to encrypt with the algorithm, decrypt with an algorithm. Do they match? Right. So we take a plaintext, a ciphertext, run it through opposite directions. Right. So that's why the double DES wouldn't work, right? Because you're going to have, when you take your plaintext and encrypt it, it's going to match your ciphertext. When you run your ciphertext and decrypt it, it's going to match the original plaintext. So you can take those two. That's that meet in the middle, double DES, known plaintext. So what's the key to use? So that's how you can validate that the key was the same. All right, known key. We know something about the key. So for example, if we know to do, so think about this with passwords, right? If your password, you have to have there's 4 possible combinations: uppercase, lowercase, numbers, special characters. Well, if we know it's only going to be lowercase and numbers, I can eliminate all the uppercase and the special characters. That reduces the amount of key space that we have to try and decipher. Differential, so we're trying to find what's the difference between related plaintext. So looking for the non-randomness. Is it a weak key? So if we encrypt, it's kind of looking at like the collision, right? If we encrypt plaintext, we're adapting it. Is there statistical commonalities that we can then use to understand? Oh, okay, here's what that key might be. Are we seeing the same thing? If I start with the same 5 characters every time, is it the same every time? Oh, okay, it is. Well, they're not using an initialization vector. So now I can start working my way through it that way.
I think, if I recall, who's seen the movie Imitation Game? Anyone? No one? No movie buffs?
Wow. Tough crowd.
Tough crowd. It's a great movie. I'm not promoting movies, right? But I think it's a great movie because the whole movie is based on encryption. And during World War II, how they were able to, the British at Bletchley Park were able to basically crack the German Enigma code. And it's fascinating because you watch the movie, you probably learn a little bit. But,
what was it called again?
Imitation Game.
I think Evan had it on one of his slides.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Ooh,
it's kind of high level, but it talks a little bit about this stuff. I'm not going to give away any secrets to the movie, but
they cracked the enigma. I wrote it for you.
Yeah. And it was thought to be uncrackable, but it was kind of clever how they actually did it. So.
All right. So linear cryptanalysis. We're going to take that known plain text and ciphertext pair created with the same key. So we're going to take and say, I got a large group of plain text. What's the output? Large group. What's the output? You then study those pairs. What's the key used to create them? So you have controlled inputs. You're looking at your output, understanding, looking for those patterns. Really, I think at the end of the day, every single cryptographic attack is looking for patterns, looking for repetition that you shouldn't have. You should be having randomness in it. Side channel, physical data to break the system. So monitor CPU cycle, power consumption, encrypting, decrypting. It's going through the side. It's kind of going around the actual encryption algorithm. It's really kind of all you need to know about that. I don't think you need to know a whole lot about what side channel attacks, the technology or anything behind them. All right, birthday attack. So birthday paradox, everybody know the birthday paradox? Get a group of 23 people or more, odds are greater than 50% that 2 people will share the same birthday. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to share the birthday with somebody else. It means 2 people in that room, there's a greater than 50% chance that they would share a birthday. So I think, as it says there, this is why probability and risk are wrong. You're not trying to match a specific birthday, right? If we have 23 people in here, it's not greater than 50% somebody will share my birthday. It's greater than 50%, just 2 people will share the same birthday. But what's the natural thought on that? Most people go, yeah, oh, 50% are going to share my birthday. No. So just remember birthday attack. It's creating hash collisions. Once you get to a size, a good sample size, it's at some point there's going to be those collisions. That's what that's for. Birthday attack, creating hash collisions. Key clustering, so different symmetric keys applied to the same plain text produce the same ciphertext. There you go. So you have 2 different keys, because remember, it's just only a certain length that's allowed in. So if your plain text, maybe it's too short, maybe it's long, whatever it may be, when you apply 2 different keys, the output is going to be the same. All right. That was it. Yeah, that's it for cryptographic attacks. Whew, man, I'm going to have to pick up the pace. Only 60 slides in. Thanks, Evan. Digital signatures. I'm just kidding.
Hey, physical security gets a lot easier, man.
Yeah. I know. There's a lot of just, same with the other one he gave me. There's a lot of just memorization on this stuff. And yeah, it's all right.
When you take the practice tests and stuff like that, it'll start to catch on.
Yeah. All right, digital signatures, cryptographically sign a document. So non-repudiation, right? It is authentication of who signed it. So hash function to generate a hash value. If I generate that hash, I can't say it wasn't me that did it. Right? So an easy way to think about this, usernames, right? Why do we not share those? Well, I'm going to show that username is assigned to me. I can't argue I didn't do that. It was my account that did that action. Right? Same exact concept with this. It's just saying I can't argue with the facts. So authentication and integrity, those 2 things together, I'm proving who I am and what I said was there is actually there. So no confidentiality, plain text is still encrypted. So again, you see it with the file downloads, right? I've provided the hash, I've signed it, there's a digital signature, that's my authentication that I created this. Here's the hash to show, has it been changed when you download it? There you go, hash function, encrypt the hash using the signer's private key, that becomes your certificate. and attach it to the data. Hashes are the same, you're good. Hashes are different, no good. All right. This is easy.
What about
HVAC.
corned beef hash and hash browns?
Can I mute him? I'm kidding.
I am admin.
Yeah, it's so weird to hear him coming in from above. HVAC symmetric encryption with hashing, similar to a digital signature. You're using symmetric encryption instead of asymmetric. So HVAC is IPsec. You have to have a pre-shared secret key, and then you can send those messages across. So you have the pre-shared, that private key, both sides. It's encrypted in transit, decrypted with the same key. All right. These are easy. Public key infrastructure, PKI. So you'll need to know on this, we're going to go through what the different roles are, kind of at a high level, what each of their functions are. So a lot of times, I think, yeah, SSL websites have it. Active Directory, you'll see PKIs occasionally. But digital certificate is the public key signed with a digital signature. And then you got your certificate, so your SSL website with the encryption with it. So that's your standard there. X509 PKI is X509. You will need to know that. So this is where, if you're in IT technology, this probably helps a little bit more because you've seen this at this level. This is where it becomes relatable. So we've made it through the tough part. Okay, what you'll need to know: certificate authorities. So digital certificates issued by that CA, right? So how many CAs are there? A bunch. There's yeah, I'm going to stay on task. So you need to know that they are issued by the CA. Whoever is requesting it is authenticated by the certificate authority before it is issued. It can be run internally, so right within your Active Directory. It's a very common one, or public, VeriSign, Thought. There's a bunch of them out there. So you need to know what CA is. Certificate Revocation List. It's a list of certificates that have been revoked, maintained by the CA. Done. There you go.
Was it Symmetric or whoever not too long ago
Yeah.
had a whole bunch of them?
Yeah, somebody was issuing a bunch of bad ones and then didn't update the list properly.
That's semantic.
Yeah. So that's what you'll need to know about PKI. IPsec. So it's a suite of protocols, right? In cryptographic layer to IPv4 and IPv6. So it's encrypting over IPv4, IPv6, VPNs, and IPsec VPN. You have authentication header and then encapsulating security payload. So yeah, we go through those next, so I'll talk about what those are. You'll just need to be able to tell what those two functions are. So you might get an example that says, here's what it is. Is that part of the authentication header or the ESP? You need to know ISACAMP supports it, Internet Security Association and Key Management, and IKE for Internet Key Exchange, and we're going to go through all those as well. So, authentication header. It is the authentication and integrity for each packet. There's no confidentiality. So, authentication header is your digital signature for the data, right? So, at the beginning of every packet, I'm going to have an authentication header that says, I know this is where it came from. This is the correct data. Protects against your replay attacks, and then the encapsulating security payload, that's what encrypts the packet data. So what that looks like in reality, you've got your IP data packet. In here, you've got your authentication header. So it goes IP, authentication header, TCP, data, right? And then within this it adds your, let me go backwards and try that again. Wow. ESP, there you go, is within the authenticated data payload. So you've got authentication header. Yes, I know this is correct. It's a digital signature. Then you receive the encrypted data. Does that make sense? So it could overlap, but they do serve two different functions. One provides authentication, the other provides confidentiality. Security Association, ISACAMP. One-way connection would provide, maybe used to negotiate ESP or AH parameters. So we're saying, how are we talking? What is our authentication header? What is our ESP? How are we going to do this? This is how, these define how that works. So if you're using the ESP, you're going to say, all right, what one direction each way? How are we talking to each other? If they're using, leverage, if you're using both, there could be multiple, you will use two, total of 4 security associations. So what you're looking at, we have the security association, one-way connection this way, one-way connection back the other way. That's how overall that round trip goes. If you're using, and so what you'll see, how many security associations in the example? There's 4. Well, I know I'm using authentication headers and encapsulating security payloads. There's 2. Well, it's using authentication headers. Each connection.
Hey, Brad. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm in a Range Rover in New York City.
That was.
It's really cool. They upgraded my rental. Anyway, I was really excited. I had to tell you. Sorry. Go ahead.
He keeps it entertaining. He keeps you on your toes. All right. So Security Association 32-bit number, security parameter index, SPI 32-bit. Each SA connection has a SPI. And then the whole thing is managed by ISACAMP. So kind of working our way backwards from that, you might say, which of these ISACAMP is what? What makes up ISACAMP? And then they'll have different examples. Well, it's managing security associations and different examples. So understand at the high level again, and you'll hear that a lot, right? It's mile wide, an inch deep. We need to know a little bit about a whole lot. You can go and become an expert in any of these areas and really dive into it. For the exam, understand how the Security Association and ISACAMP work and how they play together. What you have on the screen will be enough for the exam. Again, you're going to have to go through and understand it and be able to, right? If you just memorize this screen, you might be in trouble, but this is the type of data you need. You have to be able to understand it, right? So read through the book, make sure you understand what you're seeing here. Tunnel transport mode. So IPsec can be used in tunnel mode or transport. So tunnel mode, think of two firewalls that are talking to each other. They create a tunnel. Anything over that tunnel or that goes between that connected tunnel, you just see the tunnel. You can't see what's inside of it. Right. Transport is only encrypting the data. So we're going to sending this information over the open internet, but it is encrypted. But you'll see the original headers are not encrypted. So it's only encrypting your data. So there's still some risk there. They can see where it's coming from, where it's going, how much data is going back and forth. Tunnel, they just see that there's a connection between these two devices. They being anybody watching. All right. There you go. So the difference between tunnel mode, transport mode. You can see that there's that new header and then everything is inside of it. can't see what, you can only see, hey, there's a connection on either end. I can't see what's inside that packet. Ike, so IPsec is, again, using the different algorithms, so you can look and see there what those are. What was selected, Ike is how you select what algorithm is going to be used. So you're going to use, and just again, how does Ike work? You can absolutely look into that. It's good to have that understanding. For the exam, what you need to know, Ike is that communication on how the IPsec tunnel determines what key will be used. How are we going to communicate? Right. So, what is it going to be? The highest and fastest level of security. So AES for DES for confidentiality. Both sides support it. How are we talking to each other? What are we going to use? Yeah, that's it. Right? This is easy. Unless you don't have an IT background or haven't dealt with these things in practice, and then it's like totally foreign language. So SSL TLS, encrypting web traffic. We have our SSL certificates or TLS, secure certificates. SSL was replaced, or should be replaced by TLS. Part of HTTPS, so Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. So what you're seeing, right, when you see the HTTPS, the data is encrypted. Right? So your browser is, so you get the way that works. They're going to encrypt it with their private key. You see it's IC². Your browser has gone out and grabbed their public key. That's how you can decrypt and see what's going on. In between their server and your browser, they just see that connection. They can't see what's actually happening and what data is being transmitted. It's really what you need to know. SSL, Netscape in the 90s. Who used Netscape? All right. Thank you for not making us feel old. SSL 2.0 was the first release. SSL 3 fixed a number of the issues. SSL overall is deprecated. We shouldn't be using it. Doesn't matter if it's SSL 3. What we want is TLS 1.3 that was just released in August 2018. I don't think that'll be on the exam in terms of the versioning. Just know what SSL and TLS do. PGP, pretty good privacy. It was an asymmetric encryption released by Phil Zimmerman in '91. So Web of Trust, we're saying we've got different authenticated digital certificates, and if I trust Chad certificates, I'm going to trust anything that Chad trusts. So just kind of works our way around.
Risky.
It is, but if you are selective, it makes it easier. But yeah. So just understand what Web of Trust is on that. Again, if I trust Chad's certificates, it means I automatically trust everything he trusts. I don't trust Chad.
I won't do that. I don't trust myself.
Right. SMIME, MIME, and SMIME, so email, right? Multi-purpose internet mail extensions is MIME, secure. SMIME is secure. So it's leveraging the PKI, public key infrastructure to, I'm sorry, wow. Yes, PK.
Public key.
Yes, public key. All right. Encrypt and authenticate. So SMIME is secured email, encrypted email. SMIME encryption is done at the client or at the client's email. So you could send an email from your machine, right? There's command line ways to connect into Exchange, to an Exchange server, and send somebody an email that way. You could use SMIME as part of that. You have programs that can do it, or it's going to go through the email server. Just know SMIME is for email using PKI to encrypt. So you need. escrowed encryption. So we're going to take the private key and split it. So we're going to have at least two, as many as we need. Different trusted third-party organizations, only releasing their portion of the key with proper authorization, such as a court order. So let's say we've got a private key, and right, that's the only thing that you can use to authenticate and say, here's where it is. We're going to split that into multiple parts. So if there's an issue, there's not one person. We're going to keep that. It's escrowed in case. A lot of times you'll see this ensuring, organization's not going to go out of business and you're out of luck and you don't have a private key anymore, right? You could split it up and give it to multiple trusted third parties. It's only going to be revealed under appropriate pre-agreed requirements, right? Whatever that authorization is. Clipper chip, anybody remember Clipper chip? No? Wow. All right, so 93, so escrowed encryption in telecommunications device. So it was using, they tried to put it to everyone. Oh, don't worry, we're gonna encrypt it and you can trust us. We don't have the private key, it's split up. Yeah, so skipjack algorithm, symmetric cipher. So classified as secret, 80-bit key algorithm, not open source. Would you want that being encrypted, your stuff being encrypted without being able to see, oh, we built in this backdoor. Skipjack was classified in 98, classified. So just understand, Clipper chip was a attempt by the US government to deploy escrowed encryption in telecom. There you go. It's actually pretty interesting reading. Didn't go over well. All right, so steganography is hiding the communication, right? So when we're using encryption, you've got a ciphertext. I know there's something there, I just can't read it. Steganography is you don't even know the communication is going on. So yeah, hides the fact. So there's an example. Shaving the slave's head, tattooing instructions on it, waiting for the hair to grow back, and then sending the slave across enemy lines. If they get captured, they get captured. Who's going to look to shave someone's head? It's a slave. They don't have anything on them, right? So the communication was hidden. Yeah, data files, images is a big one. And then the messages are encrypted and then hidden. So even if they are found out, they're still protected. You have confidentiality, but most of the time you don't know. Right. Right. So what you would do is you take your initial image and then digitally put the encrypted message into that image and then send the image file. You don't see that.
Microdat, I think, was,
Yeah.
was like where they, during World War II and stuff, they would
Yep.
hit it in the Cold War too.
So steganography, hiding the fact that there's any communication at all, right? Hiding it in a picture. Watermarks, so we're encoding the data onto a file. You may have it hidden, so that is a good story about that in the book if you haven't read it. What the watermark is you're now putting an image, either you'll see it, right, Getty images or whatever on a picture, it's a watermark. Well, those can be hidden. And then if that image, or in this case the DVDs, if those are used and they find their way out on the pirate site, they can download it and say, ah, here's the watermark, it was Chad. It's trouble today, Chad. Sorry. So in this case, right, each DVD had a unique watermark because they were tired of the movies leaking before they should have. So every single movie that was sent out to a voter had a unique watermark in it. So when they showed up on the peer-to-peer network, they downloaded it, looked to see whose watermark it was, and guess what? You're in trouble. So Flushed Away. Who's seen Flushed Away? Who has kids that have seen? Okay, thank you. It's actually a cute movie.
I've not seen that one.
It's about a rat with a British accent. It's like pretty good. Or a mouse, I guess. Anyway. All right. We're gonna take a breath. Done with encryption. Everyone still with me? All right. So this is more fun. This is a little easier to relate to as well. We see it all the time. Definition: administrative, physical, and technical control. All right. We need to know. Good Lord. Thank you, Evan. Card with a high IQ. We'll need to know these.
Anytime. I'm in New York City on a Range Rover.
Hey, can you get us some pizza?
I got a string cheese in my mouth, sorry.
All right, man traps. Physical control, 2 doors. You walk in, right? You can only open 1 door at a time. Walk in, walk out the other side. There will be different types of authentication required. Think about it, right? A data center, a lot of times you'll get a scale and a code. They're gonna weigh you and you have to type in your code to go in. It's gonna remember it when you walk out. They're gonna weigh you, type in your code to get out. That scale doesn't match, we got a problem. What did you bring in that you weren't supposed to? What are you taking out you shouldn't, right? Same, you couldn't allow somebody in with you and then leave without them. Bollards, right in front of the stores, Target with the big red balls, that's a big one. It's designed to stop a car. Whatever that physical device, a post, whatever shape it is. Smart card, so access control device with an integrated circuit. Tailgating is following somebody where you shouldn't. So I badge into a room and Chad follows me even though he doesn't have access if he were to badge by himself. All right.
Or even if I do have access to,
true,
because now you don't have a record that I went into that space.
Good point.
So I really should technically badge, even though Brad just went through and I'm with him and we both work for the same company or whatever, and I have rights to be in there. I really should badge myself back in. So
yeah, that's a good example, especially like in a disaster. Who's in the building? He doesn't badge in. We don't know who's in the building because he's stuck.
Yep.
Good point. Physical security, we're talking about physical assets, so people, building, system, data. Anytime on the exam you see human safety, preserving life, preserving someone's safety, that will be the correct answer. That is the top concern according to the IC squared. So just know that, keep that in mind. You'll have a couple of questions that'll be gimmies because of that. Physical security protects threats against unauthorized access, disaster, man-made or natural. All right, perimeter fences. Think fencing. What do we have on the outside? Do we know first what our perimeter is, and then how are we protecting that? Could be the perimeter of our building is the walls. If you own the land around it, it could be where your fence is at the edge of your property. Okay, so what are we going to use to prevent, detect, or correct that unauthorized physical access? Part of the defense in depth. We shouldn't just trust the windows, the walls. Those could be broken, but it should slow people down as part of defense in depth. So fences, you'll want to know kind of at the high level, the different levels of fences. So deterrent is 3 foot, right? And then preventative would be at least 8 foot. So if they say in there, you need a preventative fence, and then they'll give you different heights, it's got to be at least 8 feet. You just want a deterrent to keep people from cutting across where you don't want them, 3 foot. You want to use these to steer ingress and egress to controlled points. So if you have a big, large, lawn area, green space, you might have a 3 foot fence so that people aren't meandering through and going to areas they shouldn't. You want to try and just control the flow of traffic. Gates, you will need to know the types of vehicle gates. The ATSM or ASTM standard, that's just what you need to know. So we've got, gate 1 deter, gate 4, designed to prevent a car crash. So that's what you would see at, maybe an airport, the government facility. The vehicle gates, residential, commercial, industrial, and restricted access. So you will just need to know those 4 types and tell what they are. I might give you an example, which is the appropriate type of gate to use in this situation, or what type of gate was used in this situation or in this scenario. Place the control points at the perimeter. Secure the site using the fences, right? So we want to direct the flow of traffic to our gates and then have the appropriate level for whatever we're protecting. Okay. Questions? This is a little easier to understand, isn't it? There you go. That is not a good implementation of a gate. All right. Bollard, strong post designed to stop a car. There you go. Convenience stores, you see those, the ones that you'd see like in DC, they're in the ground, whoosh, come up and will stop a truck dead in its tracks. But basically just know a bollard, it's a physical device designed to stop a car. Yeah. Not a good implementation of a bollard. Those are bollards, right? The yellow, those are your bollards. Well,
yeah, that's a real life. That's a real life picture. You see the propane tank. That would have hurt if somebody would have hit that.
Icy too.
Nice and icy. The car,
right?
how close is that yellow car? And then you got the black SUV pulled right up on the ice patch next to the propane tank. So you can have good bollards poorly implemented. Lights, detected and deterrent. Deterrent, well, if it's well lit, they're going to avoid it. Detective, we can go and see maybe what's going on. Poorly lit target over a more visible one. Illuminate the field of vision. The train is going through, that's why it's shaking on the screen. Fresnel lights, so lighthouses, it's using a lens to focus the light in a specific direction. Right. So if you think of a Fresnel light with the lighthouse, it's got the one light, but it's basically a lens focusing it back out. Lumen, you'll need to know what these are, so what the light measurement is. A lumen is the amount of light one candle creates. There you go, 1 lumen. So when you see on your light bulbs 800 lumens, well, it's the equivalent of 800 candles. Foot candle is 1 foot candle is 1 lumen per square foot. You will need to know that. It is what it is. Lux is based on a metric system, so 1 lux is 1 lumen per square meter. So instead of foot candles, you'd see lux. It's easy. This is easy stuff. All right. CCTV, closed circuit television. Detective, right? So we're going to go back and look and see what happened. Could be used as a deterrent. If you see the camera, maybe you're not going to break in because you know you'll be on tape or on DVR or whatever.
Would a fake camera still be a deterrent then?
It could be.
It could be, but you gotta be careful with fake cameras because then someone may, if there's a fake camera somewhere, they may presume that they're actually more protected than what they are. So potentially from a lawsuit standpoint,
Yeah,
not an attorney, but the liability. It's better, honestly, just to have a camera, the real camera.
Camera or nothing.
Or nothing, right? The other thing too, this is kind of real life scenario that was pointed out to me. I had cameras outside of the facility. I wanted to conserve recording space in the DVR, so I only had them record motion. And someone pointed out to me at the time that was wise. They said it's hard to dispute if something didn't get recorded on a camera. So somebody could slip and fall, for example, and say, "Well, I fell, I hurt myself." You look on the camera, well, it's not there. Did it really happen or not? Whereas if you're recording the whole time, you can prove.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Well, so I'll go back there. CCTVs using normal light spectrum requires sufficient visibility. So that goes back to understanding lighting on that, right? So if it's just a regular camera, it doesn't have anything special, we have to have appropriate lighting. You can add infrared, which allows you to see in the dark. Everyone familiar with infrared? Right? So you have infrared cameras. Think of the old tube cameras, analog devices. You'd be surprised how many banks still have really, really old camera systems that use this. Mm-hmm. And then the recording device is sitting on like the top of the refrigerator in the break room where everyone can access it. Not that I've seen that.
On the previous slide, there was something.
Cloud-enabled surveillance considered closed circuit. So to me, no, it's not closed circuit. It's going out. It would be more of a network in VR, right? Network video
recorder.
Yeah. I wouldn't consider it closed circuit. Closed circuit indicates it's all self-contained. Evan just crashed with my explanation. So modern cameras, charge couple discharge, so it's digital, so analog or digital. Most of what you're going to see, anything new, is digital. You have a mechanical iris, so similar to how the human eye works. Right? It opens and closes based on the amount of light. Key issues, so depth of field. Where can I see? Like how far can I see? You can get cameras that are wide angle but short depth. So you could put a camera in the corner of the room and just see part of it, or you could see explicitly what's happening in a specific area. Different functions on that.
And again, that comes into it's important as far as what you're trying to capture. Mm-hmm. If you see a blurry blob, but you really can't make out that it was me, it's not going to hold up in any kind of, to prove that, hey, that actually was Brad. So it's important to have the right amount of cameras with the right amount of resolution that's required. Right. And there's definitely numbers that can be used to calculate what your needs are.
Yeah. So understand, so again, depth of field, area that's in focus, and how much we can see. Those are the two important areas. More light, larger depth of field. And there's more light coming in, the iris is open, so there's more images coming in. The wide aperture is going to lower your depth of field. So lower light, we can't see as far, so we're going to use a wider. It's not going to go as deep. Got pan and tilt, so horizontal, vertical. You could have different types of displays. So fixed view, auto scan. When we're talking about this, is what the guard or whoever is monitoring, right? Is it always going to be just this one camera up on my screen? Is it going to go through, and show 5 or 10 seconds of each camera cyclical and repeat through? Or multiplexing, you have one display, so you've seen that where you cut the Brady Bunch approach, right? You got 9 squares, each one with its own. Those are your options on that. In magnetic tape, you can back up to VHS. Again, from the tube cameras, that is still in place in some places. Not hopefully as much anymore, but I know it was still out there in the last couple of years. CCD, so that's going to be your digital, right? Digital video recorder or network video recorder. So that's much more common now. DVR going to be local in your data center, or network being out on the network. NVR being centralized storage of all video. So you could have multiple locations all going up to a central NVR. We don't have to compile across different DVRs to put the whole picture together. Anybody see a problem with that implementation?
Easy to unplug.
Yeah, reach up from under the door before you go in and unplug it. So again, how it's actually implemented, big difference. And these are, again, real examples. Thanks, business. Installed I'm sure that's great footage out of that camera. All right. Locks. You know what a lock is?
Maybe it's a mirror so you can see down better.
It's angled the wrong way. It's angled up to the ceiling. Locks, doors, windows, unauthorized physical access. So you could have mechanical or electronic locks. Mechanical, it requires the key, a combination. Those are your mechanical locks. Electronic, smart card to read it to get in. So key lock, physical key to unlock it. What's the downside? It's really hard to control who has access to the key. It's really easy to go to Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever and get copies made. You've now lost control of who has that access. Pin tumbler. So, that's your master lock, right? You've got a pin and tumbler, and it's really simple to pick. What you do is you use it, it lines it up, right? You've got your key with the different heights on it. Each of those align with a pin. When you turn it, it's what releases it. There's at the correct height. Yeah, that allows it to turn. Using an incorrect key, you can misalign the pin and jam it, so you could, stop it from working. The warded lock, so think of a skeleton key, right? So it comes and it has a drop, and you turn it, it's going to go through those channels. Spring bolt in and out of the door jamb. So, Evan, you have a good story on that, and I can't think of it offhand. I remember that from last year.
I'm sorry, what was the story? What?
Spring bolt locks. Didn't you have a story on that?
Oh, I'm sure it was somewhere.
I don't know. All right.
I was busy answering questions online because I got back to the hotel room and started typing stuff, so sorry.
That's all right. I thought you had a story on that one, but anyway. Deadbolt, rigid. Right? Everybody knows what a deadbolt is from their house. It turns and it is what it is. Spring bolt, deadbolt go into the strike plate in the door jamb. So there's what the pin and tumbler, right? So each of those pins, there's your shear line. That's what we want to turn to. So as we turn it, we hit the right alignment, pops open, and then more that skeleton key. It's going to reach up into those channels. Lock picking. So we're going to take a tension wrench. We're going to kind of, take where we're going to turn the key, right? So that's what the tension wrench is simulating that. It's going to put tension on it. So when we hit the pick, hits the pin, those are held in with springs. Because we have the tension on it, they stay in place. They're now good. So it's literally putting tension, and there's an art to it, but using the pick to get the pins in the right order, get them where they need to be. Yeah, lock bumping, you can use a shave down key. So, there are, right, the combination section on this example, right, there's different models of keys. So we're going to use a shaved down version of it. So it's just kind of, it doesn't have like the defined valleys and peaks. So be shaved down, you put it in and bump it and turn it. So it's trying to pull and hit where you need to be because it fits in there. Anyway, there you go. Yeah, all key locks can be picked or bumped. It's just how long is it going to take. You'd be surprised. We've got some maybe next week when we don't have quite as many slides, we can bring some out. Scare everyone with how quick it is to pick a master lock.
Even a bit.
Every keyed lock can be picked. It's just how long is it going to take. Good way to tell on how long it's going to take, how complex, how big and deep are the valleys on your keys, right? The more variation, the harder it's going to be. It's all kind of level. It's going to be a little easier. At least that's what I've been told. Rumor has it. Master and core keys. Master lock is going to open master key is going to open any lock in that security zone. So you have that at schools, you have that at businesses. That's one person has a key or multiple people have a key, can open any keyed lock. The core key, It's going to allow you to remove that core. So think of this, you mostly see on like file cabinets or desk drawers, right? So you can turn this key in and pull the entire core out and replace it. So we want to control access to both of these. All right. Combination locks has a dial, numbers, specific order to unlock it. It is a weak form for production environments. Again, with any of those, like a key, like a master lock, either be keyed or combination. Realistically, those are, you're hoping to deter people that might be thinking about looking what's in your U-Haul, right? If somebody's wanting to pick the lock and get in, yeah, there's people, you can see videos on there, and I know Matt can pick just about any lock. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of how long do we have. So deterrence more than anything. Yeah. Button keypad lock, so you have the key code to punch into a door. That would be a combination. Limited accountability. We don't know who used the code. There's not a way to track it. So if you're using these for access into a data center, use it in combination with cameras. So, yeah, prolonged use, you can see the wear on the buttons.
It's down to like 3 keys.
Yeah, 3 or 4 keys. Well, there's pretty limited combinations at that point. I can just sit there and try them. Yeah, brute force attack, shoulder surfing. So Chad's putting his code in, and I'm just gonna keep an eye on what he's doing and then walk in behind him. Push button lock, limited combinations. Those do not qualify as preventative devices, deterrent only. So you see the push button locks that have like 4 or 5 buttons and that's it in a row, that's a deterrent. There's only so many combinations, and there's probably gonna be wear on there that really narrows it down. Low security, an employee restroom, but yeah, it's gonna be, you gotta keep in mind what you're trying to protect. Smart cards, magnetic stripe cards. So how do you get in for like credit cards? So pin and chip, right? So you have a chip in the card. It has the computer circuit. You can see integrated, also known as, I should say, the integrated circuit card. So contact or contactless. Contact, you have to put it on there. Contactless, it just needs to be proximity. And so everyone has like the, proxy card, proximity. It just needs to be close enough to activate that or be activated and read by the reader. Okay. Questions on that? We're going too fast, not fast enough. Okay. I'll go faster. All right. Contact cards, they must be entered in, right? So think of that as your credit card again. It's got that chip in it. You have to insert it for it to be read. And then the proxy card, it just is read as you go by. The RFID would be another one of the contact list. RFID tags, so the transceiver actually activates when it gets close and reads it, right? They're inert, and then there's not a power supply within the card. It's actually activated by when it gets close to that reader. Magnetic strip, right? Credit card. It's got the strip on the back that contains the information. It's very passive. Swipe it through the card reader. So, yeah, magnetic stripe cards are still in the U.S. Outside of the U.S., they're now to the smart cards, and you're starting to see that more now. I think it's far more common to see the chips on the cards here in the U.S. There is a strip card, right? So you have to run it through to get access. All right. Common access card, example of smart card by the US DoD. So when you have this, this contains part of the DoD's public key infrastructure. Handed out dual factor. We're going to say, here's who I am, and I've got my smart card. Part of something I have, right? I have this card with the certificates on it. It's how I know I'm allowed access there, who I am. Could be smart or magnetic strip, combination with the different locks for physical access. right? Because it's a smart card, you have audit data, right? There's a computer involved with this, so you can actually see who's coming and going. That's what it looks like. Just know what it is. You don't need to know the different parts, but it just helps understand the concept behind it. All right, so tailgating or piggybacking. Unauthorized person follows authorized person into the building after I unlock it. So if I'm allowed into the data center and Chad's not, I badge in and he just walks in after me. Well, that's a problem. That's piggybacking. Again, and the other one, like you said, could be also if you come in, even if you're allowed access, you still should badge in. Just an electronic trail of where people are at. Yeah, we have a ton of. It's one of the most successful social engineering methods. Right here in Minnesota, how do you get into a building? Almost every time, walk up with a layer cake box. Everybody's, oh, let me hold the door for you.
Yeah.
So very common. Yeah, you should train your employees. It doesn't matter. Make sure you badge in. If you don't know them, don't let them in.
Mm-hmm. Cell phones sometimes too. Pretend you're on a phone call.
Yeah.
Just walk up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Act like you know. Act like you belong there.
Those are not the tailgating and piggybacking we're talking about. All right. Man traps turnstiles. So we talked about this a little bit. First door must close and lock before the second door may be opened. Separate forms of authentication to get through. You're in there until you authenticate. It's a man trap. It literally is exactly what it says. Turnstile. Think of this on the subway, right? It's just going to control and prevent tailgating, one person at a time as it goes through. You can see, the floor to ceiling turnstile. I've seen that with like almost like the circular doors, right? You can't go over and under it, but you have to have the ability to get out if there's an emergency. It must be fail safe. Right? Human life is always the most important. The fire alarm goes off, people can exit. They can get out. You're not trapped inside. If there's a power, during an emergency, so if there's a power outage, right, with a fire, if you have an electronic system, you're stuck in there because it's down. Well, that's no good. It needs to fail safe. Contraband check, TSA, going in, making sure you're not bringing things you shouldn't bring in. Metal weapon, metal detectors, the X-ray machines. That's what that is. Just know what a contraband check is. Right. This is easier, isn't it, than the encryption stuff? All right. Motion detectors, perimeter alarm. So we need to know the difference in the motion detector types. Ultrasonic and microwave. Think of this as Doppler radar. We're going to send out a signal and get it back. Does anything change? Send out the signal, get it back. It's going to be measuring how long that echo takes. So if I'm constantly sending a message against that wall and back, I know exactly how long I should be expecting that response. Chad walks by, well, now it hits him and it's faster. Ooh, timeout, something happened. That's how that works. So these are active sensors, right? They're actively doing something. Passive sensor, sitting there waiting for something to happen. Active, we're sending out a signal, seeing what's changed. Photoelectric motion sensor, so beam of light. Think of the kind of the laser in the old spy movies. Sensor alerts when the light beam is broken. This is active. Passive would be, I've got the infrared sensor up in the room. It's only going to alert if it detects a change in that. So if somebody walks in and has body heat, it's suddenly going to go, oh, hey, something's changed. It's not actively doing anything. It's just sitting there reading, seeing what happens. So there you go. Those are some examples. Garage door, right? That's your photoelectric. It's a good one. Does that make sense? Everyone's seen the Mythbusters where they break and beat all the stuff with mirrors and different things.
You can dance around them too, like the movies with all the
Right.
lasers pointing in like 100 different directions.
Was it like Catherine Zeta-Jones and something?
One of those.
Some, anyway, I'm old. All right, perimeter alarms, magnetic door and window alarms. So you have a matched pair. Thank you. You're old too, it's okay. You have the matched pair, right? So on the side of the door, when they're closed, they're matched up. As soon as that's broken, if that door is open, that pair is broken, and that's when it sends the alarm. Yeah, secure areas, general areas, off hours or nights. Once armed, anytime that connection is broken, it alarms on it. So, that's what that would look like. People have home alarm systems. You see it, it's very common to see those. Everyone understand those? All right. This is way faster. Doors and windows. When you're an attacker, what are they attacking? Path of least resistance. What's the path of least resistance? The wall or the window? The window, right? Or the super reinforced door, or they've got a brick wall and then a glass door, right? So they're always going to be looking for that path of least resistance, weakest link. Yeah, hollow core door and a concrete wall. Well, that's pretty quick to get through. Your door hinges should always face inward or be protected. Why? Well, it's easy to pop a hinge. So we've seen it where we don't have that picture anymore, but one of the locations we did it was sensitive area and all their doors were hinged on the outside.
Yeah.
The next time we came back, because we pointed it out, I went back and they had boxes over.
Yeah, there's ways to protect.
Yeah, there's devices. And they're like, what?
Yeah,
So
I had an organization too where there's a trash room. It was kind of a multi-tenant building, and the trash room was, like where the dumpster is, so the tenants can all throw their trash in there. But I could see where there was a door at one point through there into the space where this tenant was now at because they remodeled it or whatever. And so we pointed that out. I mean, it was like a single layer, knock, 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 and you could tell, and it went right into a storage space. You would never know they were in there, hide out until they're gone.
Yeah.
It happens.
Or the shared tenancy with a bank that a single pane of non-safety glass between them and the tenant, and that was their security.
Yeah.
It's like 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch glass.
Yeah.
So, doors and windows. Emergency doors need to be marked emergency use only, have the panic bar. Right? Panic bar is going to trigger an alarm typically after a certain amount of time being pushed, so you don't have false alarms. You have to hold it for 5 or 10 seconds. I know that's my worst nightmare is my kids pushing one of those. So, glass windows, structurally weak, dangerous when shattered. There are different types. Bulletproof or explosive resistant glass is layered, right? So it'll be glass and then typically like a plastic in between, laminate in there. Wire mesh security film can help strengthen that. So everyone's seen the doors or the windows with the little grids in them, the wire grid in there. Polycarbonate, Lexan, acrylic, as plexiglass. So I don't think we need to know the difference on what those are. Just know you have alternatives to it. So there's some upsides and downsides to those. Lexan is more expensive, but it is what's used in race cars and airplanes for the strength, shatter resistance. Plexiglass is cheaper, but it'll yellow over time and it'll fade, fog up. So I think there's more details in the book. That's a good one, like the pros and cons of them. Just good to understand what those are, just so you can quickly tell, not difficult stuff. All right, walls, floors, and ceilings. Walls around any internal secure perimeter should be slab to slab, right? So we've absolutely done it when somebody has locked themselves in the office or out of their office, go up through the ceiling, across, and back down the other side. All right, that's a risk you're willing to take within an office. You don't want that into your data center, all right? So the wall should go concrete to concrete, floor to ceiling, all the way up solid wall around those sensitive areas. Secure perimeter needs to be strong enough to resist cutting. So sheetrock, that's really, really fast to cut through. right? And it's quick, quiet in. You do not want that on your secure perimeters. So you need to have concrete or some sort of reinforced wall on any secure area. You have to have the appropriate fire rating for that. So just understand, National Fire Protection Agency 75 says what it is. Shall be separated from other occupancies within the building, not less than 1 hour. That's the important part, right? So if you have a data center, you have to have a door that's rated to 1 hour, burn resistant, the walls, the ceiling, whatever contains it has to be rated to 1 hour. All right. So a couple things there, I kind of skipped through it. Raised floors, drop ceilings, right? So raised floor, anyone been in a raised floor data center? Right? You walk up a ramp or up some steps and then it's up and all the air and wires circulate underneath. Drop ceiling, you can't tell how far up this wall actually goes. So you just need to know and actually look and see, is this all the way up or not?
A good way to tell a lot of times, like on this one, I don't know if this one is. Sometimes you can tell where they build a wall after the ceiling is put in.
Oh.
And so you can actually see the grid work go right over the top of it. So
Yeah,
it's not
it's
all the
easy
time
tell.
you need to verify, but sometimes it's easy to just kind of.
Yeah, this one,
technique.
the tiles are cut to the wall.
Right.
Otherwise you'd
Channel
see
all the way
it
around
would
it.
go straight across.
Yeah.
And the wall just meets right in the middle of the tile.
Yeah.
Guards, know that. We talked about this a little bit, dynamic. So it could be, it could be detective, it could be deterrent, right? Depends on what they're doing. They're gonna be looking at credentials, responding to incidents. So if you have guards, more likely they're gonna hit somewhere else, right? It's just not worth the effort. I'll hit someone who doesn't have guards because it increases my risk as a criminal. You have professional guards, so they go through actual training and receive that, or you have the mall cops where they haven't received any formal training on security methodologies. Pseudo guard, unarmed security guard. One of the important things with guards, orders need to be complete and clear. They need to know what to do, when to do it, what they should be doing. Very important, because a lot of times guards are contractors, right? You hire a company to provide it, so you want to have clear orders for what they should do in the different situations. Social engineering is a good way to do it. We've done that before. Matt got in and had a fake badge and kept failing, and he kept talking to the guard right at 7:50 in the morning when everybody was trying to go in to work, and he was stopping the entire line, and he started talking to the guard about his beard and how he had just started growing out his beard, right? So he starts social engineering the guard, and the guards go, because people are getting mad at him. That's the issue with guards. You can be attacked via social engineering. I think guards, being a guard, it doesn't usually pay real well. So, typically they're not gonna put their life on the line or do a lot of extra on top of that. So just something to think about that. Dogs, controlled areas, you don't see those as much anymore because of the liability around it. So if you have a guard dog and they bite someone or attack someone, there's going to be legal liability around it. But could be deterrent and detective. Deterrent, if I see dogs, I'm not going in there. Detective, they're going to notice maybe something out of place and alert you to it.
About guard goose.
Guard goose, yeah, geese are mean.
They're loud too.
I don't like geese. However, a site with dogs, without dogs, more likely to be attacked than a site with dogs. So, and then the dogs would alert somebody, the guard or whoever, that something's going on. That is a very effective guard dog.
Is that one of Evan's?
Is that your dog, Evan? I think it is.
Yeah, I bet it is.
He's answering questions.
Yeah,
So,
yep, that's my dog. We trained him to take down moose, so he'll get you.
I don't know. I don't like, little dogs are too skittish for me. Sorry, Evan. Sorry, I have.
That's all right. Tell it to his face, man.
I'll just bring my dogs over. Your dog's the size of my dog's head. Also means the downside is I've got a lot more cleanup than Evan does.
Yeah, right.
All right. Physical security, things to keep in mind. Site selection, design, configuration. We need to understand that. How are we going to determine where we should be building? Right? Building a secure facility, where are we picking it? How are we designing it on the way up, all the way through final design? So you might see, as it says, you get asked about part of the site selection with the land. So you need to understand, they're going to give you a scenario that says you might get, you have these options of location. It's a city block that's empty that's being rebuilt. So you'll have other, construction in the area. Greenfield is undeveloped, a lot of land. You're starting from scratch. You're going to be taking over an existing building and kind of the scenario around it. You just need to understand and say, what are the risks around it? Which one of these would be the best location to build from? And you'll just need to be able to pick through it, and we'll tell you how to do that. See. All right, understand the topography, hills, valleys, and trees. What is the physical aspects of the land you're looking at? You think of military installations or castles, right? They're built on the edge of a cliff. It's really easy to defend. You have one direction to defend. People aren't climbing up a cliff, or they're built out, you see them on the island, things like that. Built into a mountain, right? So keep that in mind. Forcing ingress and egress to a controlled point. So keep in mind what the topography is. What is the electrical reliability? They might say you've got these three options. One of them may have great topography, but it's only served by a single point of failure. And you've got something that's really reliant on internet and electricity. Well, then you've got a single point of failure. I need to understand what the reliability of the utilities are. Is there a lot of brownouts? Is there so maybe I want to choose a spot where the topography isn't quite as good, but has multiple options for internet and power. Understand, UPS, that's going to give you a short kind of conditioning. If there's a short outage, a brownout, blackout, we'll go through all those. And then generator is going to be longer time, but you need to make sure you have fuel and you check for that regularly, because not having a fuel contract and having a problem going down and not having a generator kick on is a bad day. Crime rate should also play into a factor, right? Employee safety, remember human life. If you're in a high crime area, well, we need to take that in consideration. Right? Well, how is our employees, are they being secured? We have additional controls that we would have to put in place. And then the theft of company assets, right? There's a lot of physical damage being done. We need to be aware of that. Could be increase the amount of break-ins we have. All right. The site design can't compensate for poor site selection. So you could have the most secure building in the world if it's in the wrong area with the wrong, you've just single point of failure for utilities, high crime rate. That's not good. You can't compensate with a fully concrete bunker, right? When we look at site marking, we don't want our data centers externally marked. Who's been in a giant colo? They're just big warehouses in an office park, right? You can't tell what they are. You don't want to make them a known target.
With all the HVAC that's sitting on top of them and all the transformers these days, you can tell.
Yeah, they've actually gotten better. They hide those.
And the 8 to 12 foot high fences are all.
I was gonna say,
You can pick them all pretty good.
Yeah.
Essential.
Some of them are pretty well. You don't see like the Netflix, the shipping facilities. They were just unmarked warehouses that were shipping out of. They don't want to draw attention to this.
Right. I think for some of us who are studying this, you start to pick those out. But I think, the average person, a lot of times they have no idea. If you ask them and say, you realize it's a data center, they'll be like, why
You realize there's millions upon millions of dollars worth of equipment in there?
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, so Netflix is the example. There's no signs or corporate logos. I really didn't read this ahead of time. It's just a great example, and this is the third year I'm doing it. Shared tenancy in adjacent buildings. So, right, this is a shared tenant where we only have a portion of this building. So we need to understand what are the protections between us and others, right? Is there shared doors, shared public areas? What does that look like? Their physical security could impact ours. Do the walls run floor to, slab to slab between the shared tenants? If they leave their doors open because they don't have good controls, well, that could put us at risk. Understand what those are. The bank heist, that's a good one. The $20 million from the British bank. They went into the church next door, went down to the basement, blasted a hole through the basement because they were able to get into the church without anybody noticing them. Got away with $20 million. Wireless, that's another thing to consider. Who maps where their wireless is and what their coverage is? Anybody? Do you know how much space goes around, right? So could I sit in the parking lot across the street and use your wireless and then start hacking in? I was talking to Matt today and I didn't get to hear the rest of the story. He went to do a wireless pin test on someone downtown and they were closed due to tech pulse. He still did the wireless pin test, had no issues because their signal bled. He should have had to be on site. That's a big important part. All right, shared DMARCs. DMARC is where the ISP comes in, where they come into the building. So understand, you see that a lot, especially with the downtown, or if you have a shared location. There's one utility closet or whatever closet you want to call it. Everyone's internet comes in through through that one area. How are you protecting your internet? How is that protected? Can anybody walk in at any time? Because then theoretically somebody could tap into your internet. So we need to make sure, understand it should have strong physical access controls and secure sites, multiple segregated DMARCs is recommended. The internet should come into an area you control, not a shared area, if possible. All right, so system defenses. This is on the device itself, right? So once the attacker has gotten it on and physical access in and has access to your devices, your computers, whatever it is, what do you have on those to protect the data? Asset tracking, right? You can't protect what you don't know. I need to know what I have, where it is. Serial numbers, model numbers are really important to track so that you know this machine with this serial number had access to this type of data. This is missing. I can now track and point back and understand what level of access they had access to, or what type of data they had access to, and what controls were on that machine. Was it encrypted? What type of encryption was it? Tie all that together. Port control. So, right, I've got multiple USBs plugged in, FireWire, HDMI. What is connecting in? The USB drives, right? So I've got the little, for the wireless mouse. That's really easy to conceal, especially on a larger machine, maybe not a laptop, but a desktop where you don't see the back. You're not going to notice that. So you can hold a lot of data on there, and it doesn't take long to plug a USB in with a payload on it and go. I think they've said 30 seconds or so. Plug in and completely on a machine. It's really easy to hide those, right? If you came in with a wireless.
Just this week, Finley had something plugged into my docking station. I didn't see it, and he was just kind of.
Yeah, they were playing with them. Yeah, I know.
It's like, oh my gosh. It's every day I walk in now, I'm like, what?
Perimeter contraband check. Also, how common is it to see a mouse with a little USB on it? Well, you can get those with 64-bit gig on it. That's more than enough. Plug it in somewhere. It's easy to hide that. Physically disable the ports or locked via system policy. So physical, right, gluing them shut, or electronically disabling them. Flip side of that is, right, is the business's ability to do business. How secure do you need to make it? Drive and tape encryption. The encryption protects data at rest. So you're encrypting your backup tapes, you're encrypting your drives, so when they're turned off, they are encrypted. This is one of the few, like it says, if you are physically compromised or breached, somebody steals the laptop, encryption is one of the few things that's going to protect you or protect your data. Any mobile device that has it needs to be encrypted. Whole disk encryption is recommended. Why is that? Well, if you only encrypt a portion of it, there's still going to be, potential for like an inference attack or see other things on there that maybe I shouldn't see. Need to be encrypted. So just encrypt the whole thing. Encryption, software or hardware. Hardware is going to be faster, more efficient, less overhead. And then you need to understand and be able to show it because the PII laws, the breach notification laws, if you can prove your device was encrypted or your data was encrypted, you get safe harbor. Important. Holy cow, that's a lot of slides. All right, media storage and transportation. Sensitive backups should be stored off-site. So how are we storing that and traveling with it? You need to understand, and it should be encrypted if it's over the internet, uploading it to a secure location or remote location over an encrypted link, or physically moved as backup media. Even Amazon still offers physical backup. So if you're going to go from on-prem into the cloud, they'll bring a giant truck to your site that'll do petabytes of transfer. You can just plug in, move it to there. They drive it to their data center, plug it in, and go and upload it. It's faster than doing it over the internet. But you need to understand how they're doing it, what their protections are. It's actually kind of cool if you read about it. But sites using backup media follow strict procedures for rotating the media off-site. How are we rotating it to make sure that it's relevant, that we're getting the right stuff off-site? You need to use a bonded insured company for any off-site storage of your media. So don't just use Chad's storage company. Use a company that has been bonded and is insured. Secure vehicles.
Garage isn't good enough?
No. Using secure vehicles, a lot of times you'll see the Iron Mountain trucks. A lot of them, I prefer the ones that use just a plain truck, right? A plain van. Doesn't say what it is. Storage site needs to be geographically diverse so that a natural disaster doesn't impact you and your storage of your backups, right? So if we're here and my backups are down the street and a tornado hits, it takes out both, doesn't do me any good. Yeah, never use informal practices as backup media to an employee's house. We've seen that. Oh yeah, it's the CFO's job that I drop off the tapes to him and he takes them home, and then each week he knows on Monday to bring back this set, and on Friday I give him the next one.
We don't back up on Thursday though. That tape's been missing forever.
Yeah. So you'll see it. It's sad. Media cleaning, destruction. You need to make sure all types of media cleaned or destroyed before disposal to prevent object reuse. We talked about that, right? It's what's left over after you delete. We need to actually wipe it. Objects, it's either physical or electronic. It doesn't matter, right? If it's paper or digital, we have to take the same precautions. It's just how those are actually destroyed. Dumpster diving. Evan's gotten people to help him that he shouldn't have had help him with dumpster diving, or technical. So looking at, I just deleted the data and then somebody steals the drive and is able to actually go in and recover the data because I didn't securely wipe it. You have to have a formal policy and it needs to be documented. So here is our policy. All media must be securely disposed or wiped before it is sent off-site. Well, physical, you have the shred bins, right, for paper. Electronic, we're going to run this program to wipe this data, and then we can send it off for destruction. But we need to track the serial number, what type of data it was, when it happened, and who performed the action. Provides accountability. All right, we're almost there. Environmental controls, HVAC, power, fire suppression. All those are environmental controls. We're controlling the environment. If you think about it, in a data center, too much humidity, too little humidity, right? If there's too much humidity, we risk corrosion. If there's too little humidity, we risk static electricity. Both of those are damaging to electronics. We want to have controls in place to keep those in the desired range. Electricity reliability is key for any data center. It needs to be, that's a big one, top priority when selecting, building, and designing a site. What does the electricity look like? And I think there's some, you'll need to know this, but there's some examples in the book around, San Francisco is known for brownouts. Have an older grid. Well, you need to take that in consideration. Do we build in San Francisco or somewhere else, maybe San Jose that doesn't have it? It's one of the considerations you need to take. All right, you will need to know and be able to tell the difference between the following on the types of faults. They will give you an example, and you need to be able to pick which one of these it is. So is it a blackout? That's that prolonged loss of power, right? So we're down for hours. A brownout is low voltage, so it's low power for an extended period of time. The fault is a short, right? So your breaker trips. Surge is going to be a prolonged high voltage. So brownout and surge are very similar, right? One's low, one's high. You need a conditioner in place to handle that. Typically, like a UPS would help with that. A spike is a tip rate, is just a short boom bump up. It can basically short out your electronics, right? Overload them. And then a sag is a temporary low voltage. So really just understand what each of those are. Memorize that. All right, so how do you protect against it? Surge protectors. So evens out those surges, right? If you have a spike of electricity, it could cause the electronics, it could cause damage. So a surge protector evens those spikes out, levels it out, and it could trip to prevent that level from hitting your sensitive electronics. Think right at home, if you have a lightning strike at your house, that would be a surge. What's that going to do to your TV and everything and computer if it suddenly have a huge spike in electricity into the house? It's time to buy new ones. Surge protector is going to trip and protect your electronics. UPS, backup in the event of a power outage. So this is where you're looking at cleaning it. So you could have the surge, the spikes, the brownouts, whatever it might be. They're going to provide that even keel on the output, right? Because they're going to, if it's high, they'll just absorb it into the batteries, put out the same amount at the other side. If it's low power coming in, the batteries will supplement. You still have a set amount of electricity coming out. So think of that as cleaning the power. Or provide backup power via the batteries or fuel cells. It is low period or limited period of time. Typically, I don't know, anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour. What's appropriate for your situation? Really, you're looking at that to if there's that really short interruption, and then just to wait till the generator trips and gets going. And you don't want to set your generator off every time. If there's a 2-minute outage, it's going to get really expensive. So generator, long periods of time, will run as long as fuel is available. Again, very key, you have to have a fuel contract in place and that they're actually checking fuel on a regular basis. Tested and serviced regularly. So just understand what a generator is. It's that long term, and fuel is key.
Anyone ever run long term on a generator? Yeah, we did. For like a week, I think.
Yeah, about 2 weeks when we had
that storm.
Isabel and back in Virginia.
Yeah.
No power for 2 weeks except for brought a big semi truck of for a generator, portable one. Not fun. EMI, electromagnetic interference. So you see the EMI bombs, right, and the pulses in movies where it just shuts down all electronics. It's an electromagnetic wave signal, and it shuts things down. So crosstalk is when you have cables that are poorly shielded. So you have shielded pair, unshielded pair. Shielded pair will eliminate or reduces it. Unshielded pair is just the copper. There's no shielding around it. You can have crosstalk across it. Fiber optic does not suffer from that. Power cables closer to network cables. I think Evan was talking about the problem trying to troubleshoot it. I think it was in here. I can't keep track anymore. That they would have network disruptions for like 5 minutes at random intervals. It turned out that the network was run across the ballast for the women's bathroom. So every time someone would go in and turn on the light, it would interrupt network traffic. That's a nightmare to troubleshoot, right? So make sure you route cables properly. HVAC, reasonable temperature and humidity. So closed loop, we're recycling the treated air, right? So it's in there. It's not pulling outside air in and conditioning it. It's rerunning the same air that is already in that room. So that's going to reduce the consumption because it's already at the right levels, and then reducing dust and other contaminants. Understand the difference, positive pressure and then drain. So positive pressure meaning if I open the door, the air goes out. I'm not drawing air in. So when you have a positive pressure, you open the door, you hit with that blast of wind going into a data center, that's positive pressure. Again, you don't want the untreated air coming into the building, and then water should drain away from the building. I think that's common knowledge, but not necessarily. HVAC, especially in data centers with raised floors. Do you have one? Do you have multiple water sensors under the floor? Because they're covered, you don't see it. So one of the biggest issues with HVAC units is when they start getting that condensation from pulling the humidity out and controlling it, they'll condensate and drip and have issues under the floor. Positive drains push it out of the building. They don't sit in their room. And then big one, you need to formally document all the utilities, gas, water lines, and drains. If there's an issue, we don't want to be guessing where things are. We want to know. Data center temperature recommendations, lows, highs, optimal. Now you're seeing it actually go up to, 64 to 80 and optimal of 80, depending on what the vendor is. You're seeing a lot more. It used to be like 60 degrees in data centers. You walk in with your coat on. Now you're seeing 70 to 75 being the accepted norm. Humidity, 40 to 55% recommended. Find a set point based on the temperature. So, one of the sources, 68 to 72 degrees. Now you have ASHRA recommending 77 degrees as a result of green initiatives. One of the biggest, not as you need it, but one of the biggest ones I heard was in the winter, lower it down to 40, and in the summer, raise your humidity to 55, right? Because it's more green at that point. You're still within your normal bounds, but you're not working your equipment as hard. There you go. But understand heat and humidity. What do they do? Well, like I mentioned, static and corrosion. Static discharge could cause shortage. Who remembers having the static wrist straps? So, static is proper humidity, proper grounding, and using the anti-static spray, wrist strap, or work surface. Low humidity, static. So you need to know on that. If you're working with sensitive computers equipment, you should ground yourself before performing work. High humidity, corrosion. So you need to know low humidity, static, high humidity, corrosion. You can mitigate both by maintaining proper levels. Airborne contaminants, dust. Right? We've seen pictures of the fans just completely clog the intakes. Why did this overheat? Because it's not getting any airflow. Could cause, CPU failure due to overheating. Just no airborne contaminants, dust, they can cause problems. All right, heat, flame, smoke. You've got 3 methods. We talk about those next. Okay, good. We'll go through those in a second. Typically, what do you have the alert? Here, local, right? The fire alarm goes off, people in the building are aware of it. Or you could have it go back to a central location, right? If it's monitored, you could have it monitored all the time. They have those services. You need to have audible and flashing lights. Why? Human life, right? Human safety. If it's only audible, deaf people aren't gonna know. If it's only flashing lights, blind people won't know. You need to have that combination. So when you have heat detectors, when it exceeds an established baseline. So we're gonna say in this example, if it goes up 10 degrees in less than 5 minutes, trigger. We're just looking for it, not necessarily super reliable or super fast, right? It could be a little too late at that point, but that's one. Smoke detectors, so you need to know the difference between the smoke detector types, ionization and photoelectric. Ionization is the radioactive source, looking for that small electric charge, and then it's looking for the ions and if there's any change. So like those will go off prior to the photoelectric, I believe. LED and photoelectric sensor generating small charge while receiving light. So it's going to be sending out and looking for changes, right? Is there a flame now? Is there smoke that's blocking and changing the signal? When that smoke interrupts radioactivity or the light, lowering or blocking that charge. So it's just looking for environmental changes. Dust needs to be avoided because if it's really dusty, it could, in theory, trigger the alarms, right? Because you get a lot of dust. Cardboard in data centers, no, get rid of it. A lot of dust, a lot of particulate could in fact trigger these. Flame detecting infrared or ultraviolet light. The difference here on flame detector, you need to have line of sight. So if the flame is in the wall, it may not see it, right? It's not detecting that change, that light of the infrared or ultraviolet. It needs to actually see the flame to trigger. Safety training and awareness, training your staff. How many people have gone through we're doing our evacuation drill today. Everybody knows where to go, what to do, right? Training staff on what they should be doing. Evacuation routes, they need to be posted. People need to be trained on it. And any guests need to be advised of it. And then there should be having a defined meeting point.
Do we need to know anything on VESDA for the smoke detectors?
I don't think so. I don't remember anything about that specifically. I'll double check though. Roles and procedures. These you'll need to know the difference between the safety warden and the meeting point leader. Right? So safety warden is making sure everybody safely evacuates. Meeting point leader is going to be the person that is going to ensure that everyone that should be there is there. Safety warden would be like the last person to walk through, make sure everybody's out and the building is evacuated. Meeting point leader is going to take role and make sure we're not missing anyone. We need to make sure handicapped people, so high rises, especially after 9/11, now you have in all the stairwells for like the wheelchair evacuation, like the sleds or the backpacks for people with handicaps. Elevators never used in the event of a fire. and you should have mitigating controls that allow safe egress for all personnel, human safety. You will need to know the ABCD of fire suppression. So fire suppression types, there are 4 types. Class K is easy. Class K is kitchen fire. Just remember kitchen. So these are the 4 types. You'll need to be able to tell the difference. The easy way to remember this, I don't think we had it on there. A is ash, right? Right. B is boil. C is charge, computer, and then D is it's everything else. I got 3 of 4 for you. And K is kitchen. So just remember, if it leaves ash, right, paper, wood, that's in type A. It's going to boil liquids, gas. B, if it's computer, electrical, that's class C. And everything else is D, or if it's a kitchen fire. Anyway, there's your tip of the day. But you'll need to know that. This is important. This is a big one. If you're implementing a new fire suppression, always consult with an expert. That is your answer for the exam. If they say you are looking to do this, new utility, new water, new gas, new fire suppression, and one of the options is consult with an expert, consult with an expert. They'll say things like, do your homework and research with what other people in the area are doing. No, always consult with an expert. So all of them work via these 4 methods, sometimes in combination, but at the end of the day, they're going to reduce the temperature, right? Because what does a fire need? Fuel, oxygen, heat. We're going to reduce the temperature, reduce the oxygen, reduce the fuel, and some of them interfere with the chemical reaction. All right, water. How does it work? Suppresses temperature, suppresses temperature below kindling point or ignition point. It's the safest, so common combustibles, so type A, but you got to make sure you turn off the electrical power. Electricity and water don't go well together. Soda acid, these are we got a picture of one, the old giant enormous brass extinguishers. Those were soda acid. They lower the temperature and then creates that foam, which lays on the top, which eliminates and starves the fire of its supply of oxygen. So there's what an old soda acid fire extinguisher looked like. Dry powder, so yeah, sodium chloride, it's going to lower the temperature and smother the fire. You don't have oxygen in a low temperature, no fire. If you've ever set off a dry powder extinguisher, it gets everywhere. Don't do it unless you have to. CO2, it's removing oxygen. So a lot of times you'll see this in remote network utility closets, network remote computer closets, right? Because it is efficient, right? It just starves, it removes all the oxygen from the room. However, there's a huge risk to human life because there's no oxygen, we're not going to make it either. You need to understand what the CO2 safety is. So you would typically see that, like I said, maybe out in the country at like the wind farms, you might have a CO2 suppression because they're not in there a lot. It's not close to anyone. Halon substitutes, you will need to know what this is. Halon via the chemical reaction, but it is being replaced. So you'll need to know the Montreal Accord. Make sure you understand what this is. Banned halon, consumption of new halon in January of '94. Existing can be used, but you can recycle halon. So you can't get new, but you can get recycled. There are some exceptions for that, but just understand that halon is ozone depleting. It's not very environmentally friendly, and it was the Montreal Accord, protocol that eliminated it. What are the recommended replacements? You will need to know this: argon, Fe13, FM200, and Energen. So FE13, I think, is the newest, comparatively safe. You'll just need to make sure you understand kind of what those differences are, which one of those are, recognize that any one of those four may show up as what is a accepted replacement for Halon, and they'll have all kinds of craziness, and one of them will be FE13. Oh, well, I know that that's the accepted replacement. So 30% for FE13, others 10 to 15. We need to know about sprinklers. So understand the difference in the different types of sprinkler. What pipe? Water is all the way to the sprinkler head. So if something bursts or if it goes off, it's immediate. Right? So safe evacuation is the primary source. So if it's just people, you're not worried about books at a library or computer equipment. Maybe you have a wet pipe system. Metal or glass bulb, and they are color coded. As soon as it hits a specific temperature, it goes off, and each head is independently triggered, right? So if there's a fire in here, only these systems will go off. It won't go off in the background. There you go. There are the bulbs. You will probably want to remember those temperatures, the order they go in. Once the temperature hits that, you can look at it. I think these are red. Yeah, those are red. Yeah. Looks like red to me. So 155 degrees. Pre-action, so it's going to be a combination. We're not all right. So dry pipe, it's going to be dry to the head. There's going to be a trigger. It's going to be, once it goes off, it releases the water at that point. So there's a little bit more of a time on that. Two separate pre-action is going to be two separate triggers. Double interlock using compressed air. So the fire alarm and the sprinkler head. So you could have the fire alarm go off. It's going to trigger the first part, but then you still have to have the sprinkler head go off. So there has to be a fire in this area, but both of those things have to happen for the alarm or for the system to go. Think of that as your, where you've got accidental discharge, right? So if we had it next door, they were doing some construction, and construction guys knocked the head off and flooded. They set them back like a week because they had to wait for fire department had to come out and do it. Then they had to rebuild the whole thing and dry it all out. Can you imagine if that happened in a library or a museum? Well, that's where you would want that, 2 levels. Also in cold areas, frozen pipes, right? If you have a wet pipe, it gets really cold, not good, you're gonna have a burst pipe. So you wanna keep the dry pipe to the end and only run the water when you actually need it. Okay. All that makes sense? Man, this is a long class. Almost done. Portable, marked with the type of fire they're designed to extinguish. Carried by, be able to operate it by who is using it and understand what pass. Pull pin, aim low, squeeze the pin, sweep the fire. Understand what pass is.
Nice work.
Man, only went over by 40 minutes.
Yeah, you said there was 160 slides.
That's 161 right there, because the head slide. So page 212, Monday, we're gonna go to more technical. Any other questions? I've got the hockey game recording at home, so I'm gonna go home and watch. So
Good luck.
anybody that spoils it gets false information. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.